everyone. My name is Arlene, and I'm a Christian in recovery from drugs and alcohol and codependency. Hello, right back. That is such music to my ears when you all say hello to me, because I can feel the love, and I just love. It is good stuff when you guys say hi to me, because it makes me know that I'm exactly where I belong with a bunch of people, bunch of mixed nuts just like me, tasting good together, right? I'm so glad that we're all here. If you were given one of these, which I hope you were, go ahead and open it up, because we have some fill in the blanks. There's some pens in the seats. You can go ahead and follow along as we go. My sobriety date from drugs and alcohol is November 27, 1985. I began my recovery from codependency in Al-Anon about 10 years later. And by the way, okay, insert commercial for Al-Anon here, okay? I'm inserting this commercial for Al-Anon. Al-Anon has come to our Friday night experience. I want to let you know about it. Al-Anon is for anyone who is experiencing pain over another person's alcohol or drug use. And if that's you, if you're experiencing pain over somebody else's alcohol or drug use, think about visiting Al-Anon in room 1 tonight during the small group hour. Okay, end of Al-Anon commercial. Back to our regularly scheduled program. And I began my recovery from nicotine and smoking in April of 2000. So God constantly reveals more and more to me about who I am and what I need, because recovery is a journey. It's one day at a time, every single day, taking one step forward. So if you're here for the first time, you're here at the beginning, and I want to welcome you, because we're going to be talking about step 1 tonight, step 1 of the 12 steps. So I'm glad you're here, right here at the beginning of your journey, because God will constantly reveal more and more and more to you, to me, to all of us on this journey towards wholeness and healing with recovery. So welcome to everybody here. So years ago, I don't know how many years it's been now, I used to love watching the TV show American Idol. I loved American Idol. I decided at some point in time that I was going to watch something on TV that was not meaningful. It was going to be pure garbage, and I chose American Idol, and I got hooked on it. And I wasn't alone. It was the most popular TV show on for years and years. Sort of, for those of you who don't remember American Idol, it was sort of the forerunner to The Voice. And what was different though about American Idol than The Voice is that the singing contestants on American Idol weren't as well screened as they are on The Voice. The singers on The Voice, you notice this, they can all sing pretty well. I mean, some of them, maybe they don't sing well enough to actually get chosen, by a judge, but they sing well enough to be there, right? To be competing for a slot. But not so with American Idol. With American Idol, the people who sang for the judges to pick them were just kind of like regular folks who maybe always just wanted to sing, right? They thought, hey, I want to sing, so I'm going to try out. Or maybe they dreamed of being a rock and roll star, right? Some of them were people who they said, their friends said, you can really sing, you ought to try out for American Idol. Some of them had never even sung for another human. Maybe they had just been in their bedroom in front of the mirror with a hairbrush, right? Anybody ever do it? Come on, if you've done it, raise your hand. If you've sung in front, whoa, come on, join. We're halfway there. Living on a prayer, right? You've done it, right? Come on. We've all done it. See, but all the American Idol contestants, they had one thing in common. They all thought they could sing, right? They all thought they could sing. But here's the thing. Many of them couldn't sing. They couldn't sing, not a note. And many of them were just horrible singers. I mean, they were awful. I mean, worse than you could even imagine, right? I mean, it's kind of like watching a train wreck. You'd be watching it and you can't look away. They were just so bad, right? It was just so bad. American Idol was I think the most popular show on network TV because people were entranced by watching other people who were so unself-aware. So unself-aware. I mean, even when the judges told these horrible singers outright, I am sorry, sweetie, you really can't sing. Please don't sing anymore, preferably ever again. Many of them would just like stubbornly reply that these judges were dead wrong. They were dead wrong about their talent, even though these judges were the experts and the professionals, right? I mean, these bad singers, they just refuse to take an honest look at their singing ability. They couldn't accept the truth about themselves. So tonight in this lesson called Honesty, we're going to look at step 1. And the importance of honesty in step 1 to our recovery from our addictions and our afflictions, whatever brought us here. Now, the steps are in order for a reason, because step 1 is the guidepost that leads us in the right direction for the rest of the steps. And the principle between step 1 is honesty. And honesty is the glue that's going to keep our recovery together. Step 1 is on the screen. Let's read it together. We admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Now what do we mean by honesty when it comes to step 1 and our recovery? Because I think many of us would say, maybe most of us, I don't know, would say, hey, I'm an honest person. You know, I'm an honest person. I don't steal. And if I do steal, then they deserved it, right? I'm honest at work. I'm honest with my family, unless honesty maybe gets me in trouble, and then I might shade the truth a little bit to make it easier on myself or other people. But hey, doesn't everybody do that? And I think most people here tonight would probably say that they were honest about themselves, too, even with regard to their addictions and afflictions. They'd say, you know I use too much, yeah. Or I know I'm often angry, but there's good reason for all of this. I know I spend too much time on other people, focusing on other people, but there's good reason. You know, if circumstances changed, I wouldn't have to use. I wouldn't have to be so angry. I wouldn't have to look at porn so much. It's my circumstances, or it's this person, or it's that person that drives me to drink, or my finances that cause me to gamble, or whatever. But honesty, when it comes to step 1, is more than what I call like cash register honesty. You know, the honesty that sits on the surface. The honesty required in step 1, when we finally let down our defensiveness, is a self-awareness of the dire condition of our body, mind, spirit, and emotions as a result of our addictions and our afflictions. See, honesty is accepting the truth about ourselves as we are right now. As we are right now. Not how we wish we were. Not how we used to be. Not what we convinced others we were. Not what we try to make ourselves look like, but the truth. And the truth is that we all come to this place of recovery because we're broken. Because we're broken. You know, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book of Alcoholics Anonymous says it this way. Read it with me, it's on the screen. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accepted his devastating weakness and all its consequences. Until he so humbles himself, his sobriety, if any, will be precarious. Of real happiness, he will find none at all. And you know what? This statement doesn't just apply to alcoholism. It applies to the thing that brought you and me here tonight. You know, without honesty about ourselves and the true condition of our body, mind, spirit, and emotions because of our addictions and afflictions, I mean, honesty when we begin our recovery, but also at every step along as we go through our recovery too. Without honesty about ourselves, we will never gain true recovery. Finally, accepting the truth about our brokenness, our devastating weakness, is the first step towards healing. And what is our weakness? Well, our weakness is that we're self-sufficient, right? Is that we think we're self-sufficient? Our weakness is that we're not God. That's our weakness. Our weakness is we can't control our own lives. We've tried. It didn't work. We ended up in jail, or sick, or without our families, or depressed, or with a ruined future, or with a giant hole in our soul, even if we were surrounded by everything we thought we ever wanted. Right? I mean, our honest cry out in step 1 can be summed up in 2 words. They're important words. They're on the screen. Can you say them with me? I can't. Let's say it again. I can't. I can't do it. I just can't. No matter how I try, I can't seem to change and stay changed. I can't seem to manage my addictions and afflictions. I end up the same hopeless place every time I try. And the first way we begin to accept the truth of our dire condition is to declare our brokenness. Is to declare it. And to declare it means to declare what we can't do. We finally stop making excuses, and we plainly say things like this. And maybe you identify with some of them. We say things like, I'm a food addict. I'm an alcoholic. I am a compulsive gambler. I am a codependent. I'm powerless over pornography. I am a drug addict. I am a rageaholic. I compulsively need romantic relationships. And so many more. The Apostle Paul in the Bible he was the guy who led the entire movement of building the church of Jesus after Jesus went back to heaven. And he used to hate Christians and hunt them down and kill them. And then Jesus got a hold of his heart, and Paul became the biggest church builder that there was. Paul was gifted in many ways. He was a devout follower of Jesus, yet he knew how important it was to recognize his devastating weaknesses and all their consequences. He knew that maddening struggle with not being able to be the person that God made him to be. This is what he said about himself and his struggle, and I think it applies to each of us here today in our recovery too. This is from Romans 7:14 through 25. He said, "So, the trouble is not with the law, for it is spiritual and good. The trouble is with me, for I'm all too human, a slave to sin. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know what I'm doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I'm not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I'm not really the one doing wrong. It is the sin living in me that does it. I have discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that's at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. Read this with me, will you? Oh, what a miserable person I am, right? Can you relate? And then he says, who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? Thank God. The answer is in Jesus Christ, our Lord. But do you see how Paul goes back and forth in this passage. He goes back and forth like he's trying to wrestle himself to the ground. He's trying to wrestle in his mind with the truth of who he is. It's like he says, I'm trying hard, I'm a good person, that's the truth, right? But then no, sin has a hold of my life. I'm not as I seem. So God, what's the truth? Oh, what a miserable person I am. Do you feel the struggle? See, because I relate to Paul's terrible battle with being honest about himself. I relate to it. I relate to him wondering why in the world he can't seem to do what he knows he ought to do and be who he knows he ought to be. Because that's my story of step one in the program and finally getting honest with myself. See, when I first came to the program of AA, I had been telling everyone for years that I was an alcoholic and an addict, but the thing is I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what the definition of that was. I thought it meant I just liked to party too much. And as for the condition of my life at the time, homeless, my kids messed up, multiple husbands, employment that I couldn't tell my mother about, anger about the state of the world, well, all that, I just sort of chalked all that up to my lousy upbringing by my parents, bad luck, those awful men I kept hooking up with, and all kinds of other outside influences that were just making me be like I was. I wasn't honest about my condition at all. So here are a few forces that were fighting against me being honest, and maybe you can recognize them in yourself too. And these are going to be some fill in the blanks, so get your pen ready. Here's the first one, denial. Denial was a force that fought against me being honest, because denial is a funny thing. Denial is like the kind of thing that's hard to recognize because by the nature of denial, you don't know you're in it, right? I like to think of this acrostic for denial. Don't even know I am lying. So if you don't know what you don't know, how do you find out you don't know it? That's the challenge, isn't it? For me, my denial over what alcoholism and addiction was and why my life was a mess had to be smashed. It was smashed by intense pain over my life, and I became desperate for my life to change no matter what. So I became willing to listen to voices telling me truths about myself that I did not think were true about me. Does that make sense? I went to these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and I heard that I didn't have all the correct information about what was going on with me. You know, it took me 3 years to break the denial over thinking I had control over my alcoholism and drug addiction. But once my vision cleared, then I became willing to listen to truths about myself that were different than what I thought they were. So that's the first force. The second force that fought against my honesty was pride. You know, pride is one of those funny things too, because, you know, like for me, pride meant I didn't want anyone else telling me what was wrong with me. My mantra was, I know myself. I know what I need to do and not do. Nobody needs to tell me. I know everything. I know if a solution is right for me. I know if it's not. I can assess myself perfectly. You stay out of it. You live your life, and you let me live mine, okay? Now, pride is also a kissing cousin to stubbornness, by the way, friends. And I had some of that, too. And also, the way I was perceived by everyone was very important to me. I didn't want anyone else to know my weaknesses. Now, of course, they could see it, but I didn't want them to know it, even though inside I was riddled with pain and confusion. See, pride was the thing that kept me from wanting to ask for help or accepting help in a different way than what I asked for, because I might ask you for one thing and you'd give me something else that I needed, and I didn't want that. Pride kept me from getting a sponsor who I knew would tell me what to do, and I didn't want anyone telling me what to do. So for 3 years after coming into the AA program, I fought against complete honesty, and pride was a big reason that I couldn't yet completely take step one. And the third force that fought against my honesty in step one was fear. This is another funny thing, see, because yes, on one hand I was filled with pride, but on the other hand I was also filled with fear. Fear said to me, you dare not go any further in finding out what's going wrong with you. You may not be able to face it. You may not want to see it. Fear told me that I dared not be honest with myself because what I would find out might kill me. Denial, pride, and fear. They fought against me getting real with myself, but once my desperation grew bad enough, and for me, what that looked like for me was after 3 years of being in the program of recovery, fighting being honest, I ended up, it's after 3 years, I'm sober, I started a fight in a bar that included police and violence and chaos. Once my desperation grew bad enough, then I could admit a few simple truths about myself. Things like this: yes, my condition is that bad. Yes, it is. No, I don't know how to fix it. I don't. Yes, I'm powerless. And that's the honest truth. These are hard statements, but they're at the core of the honesty that we need to work step one. It means we have to put all our attitudes and ideas about ourselves up for grabs because we simply don't know. And when we do that, it includes letting go of some things. It includes letting go of some things. And here are a few things I needed to let go of to become honest and work step one. Maybe you need these too. And here's the first thing I needed to let go of, to be honest. I need to let go of the future. I had to let go of the future. See, because truly only God had my future. I didn't know that when I first came into recovery. So the thing that I had to come to terms with was that I don't know who did have it, but I didn't have it. I didn't have control over my future. I had made a terrible mess of making my future. It didn't turn out the way I wanted, and guess what? It wasn't going to. I couldn't control the future, and that was it. That was the truth. And the funny thing is once I began to let go of the future, that really helped with fear. It really did. Because when you let go of the future, it relieves you of the fear, anxiety, and dread, and that constant knot in your stomach that it's up to you to figure out everything. It makes it go away, because the truth is you just don't know, and you never have. Next thing I had to let go of was I had to let go of being right. I had to let go of being right. This means I had to let go of defending myself. I had to let go of defending my actions, my reactions. I have a good reason. I had to get honest that I didn't really know why I did what I did. I had no idea. I didn't know what was right. I only had opinions. And the fact that I was riddled with fear and anger and bad relationships and addictions and afflictions proved that my opinions just weren't that great. Only when I honestly admit that I don't know everything, not about myself or anything, can I let go of being right and learn something new about how to live. And here's the last thing. I had to let go of expectations in order to become honest. I had to let go of expectations. I had to begin to let go of how things or people or I should be. Expectations are premeditated resentments, you know. Because frankly, nothing ever goes exactly the way we wish it would. Nobody ever acts just exactly as we wish they would. And here's the thing, that's a good thing. Because only God has enough of the big picture to know what's best anyway. I don't, and neither do you. See, I had a lot of expectations of myself. I had a lot of expectations of people. I couldn't live up to any of them. And here's the worst kind of expectations, in my opinion, that you can have, is expectations about recovery. Expectations about recovery are the worst, because then when something doesn't go the way I think it should, or it doesn't go as fast, or something seems like it's off track, or somebody disappoints me, when my expectations about recovery get out of whack, then I think I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And then as soon as I'm out of here, I'm free game for the devil to get a hold of me. And I'm back to my denial and my fear and my pride, my addictions and afflictions start raging. So to honestly work step one, the only expectation that I can have is that things aren't going to be the way I think. So as the band comes up, I just want to sum it up. When you and I can honestly admit our powerlessness over our problems that we haven't seemed to be able to solve no matter how we tried, and when we can honestly admit that we haven't gotten the slightest idea of how to get better, And when we recognize that our denial and our pride and our fear are forces that fight against us getting well, and when we begin to start to be able to let go of what we think the future should be and our need to be right and expectations of ourselves and others, only now are we in the perfectly open and empty place for God to be able to do his best work in us. Only when all of those things are let go of can my heart break open enough for God, for Jesus to fall in. You know, God loves us. He loves you and he wants you to get to the end of yourself so he can begin to breathe into you who he created you to be. And the starting point of this healing is seeing things in ourselves as they truly are, right now, so we can get to that next step where we can grasp onto the answer to our dilemma and declare, like the Apostle Paul did at the end of that scripture, thank God the answer is in Jesus Christ our Lord. Because I can assure you that the Apostle Paul, who said he was a miserable wretch because he knew how far he was off of what God's intended tension for him was hopeless in not being able to control himself, not for that hopelessness to bring him shame over being hopeless, but to bring him to his need of Jesus. That's what the hopelessness does. That's the same for you and me. That's the purpose of step one, to get us there. Jesus is going to span the gap between our hopelessness and his abundant life, between our hopelessness and his abundant life for us. He will span that gap. But if we still have our own solutions, then we don't really need him, do we? And then Jesus can't enter in. But then when we know we don't know now, then Jesus can fill those holes. You know, I quote a lot from the AA literature because I grew up in AA. And it has so much to do with every addiction and affliction that, even other than alcoholism, that I suffer today. So one last quote from the 12 and 12 book, and then the altar is going to be open for you to come, get honest with yourself, lay down your denial, lay down your pride, lay down your fear, let go of yourself. It says, under the lash of alcoholism, we're driven to AA, and there we discover the fatal nature of our situation. It's then and only then do we become as open-minded to conviction and as willing to listen as only the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything which will lift the merciless obsession from us. That was my story of honesty in step one. That's how I came to it. Jesus came and he filled me when I was finally empty and desperate enough to have room for him. But I had to work step one to make the room. So today the altar is open for you to come and make room for him tonight with your honesty. The altar is open to do just that.